Hello everybody, this is The Woods, and I'm here today to bring you Choice of Robots. So, these games are pretty unique. They're completely text-based. I thought I'd give it a try, see how you guys like it. I will be narrating all the lines, obviously. I don't know, these are really cool. They don't have too many videos on them, but still I think they deserve some attention. They are pretty cool. The overall series is called Choice of Games, or I shouldn't say series, rather the company that makes them is called Choice of Games. Though they are kind of unique in the sense that the people that make the game aren't necessarily always the people that work at the company. They have an open source game making platform, and then from that you can make your own game. For example, this game was made by Kevin Gold. Not a whole team of people, but just one person that, had an interesting idea and decided, this is what I'm going to do. So, we're going to be playing this. Where are you? In the court of Egyptian god Anubis, answering for my sins? On a war-torn battlefield with a robotic Statue of Liberty? On a cliff in Ireland, watching the sunset with my robotic companion? On a utopian beach ruled by godlike cloudy robots? Let's get judged by Anubis. He's a fun guy. You see a robotic Anubis, jackal-headed guardian of the Egyptian underworld, seated on a throne of gold-etched silicon in a hall of dark glass. He holds scales on which he weighs a clockwork heart against a silicon brain. Tell me your sins, robot maker, Anubis says. In life, I created robots that could think but not feel, and so they turned against us. I made a robot to love me unconditionally, but never offered love in kind. Your scales balance because I gave my robots neither hearts nor minds. My minions obeyed me without question as I conquered Alaska. So what shall we do? Shall we go the pure robot route? Nothing but unthinking machines? Or I guess only thinking machines, rather. Shall we make a loving robot? Or shall we go for world domination? Shall we try to rule? Let's go with that. We now know our mission: to take over Alaska. I recall, says Anubis, your reign of terror sent me many souls, both robot and human. The black glass behind the god shimmers and reveals a snowy battlefield littered with flaming debris and stained with blood. You see yourself standing alone on the battlefield. Right arm has been replaced with a kind of cannon. An American jet fighter flies overhead, and you fire a rocket-propelled grenade from your pathetic weapon. The grenade homes in on the jet, using its own rudimentary intelligence, and the vehicle erupts in a fireball. The pilot of that jet was quite an interesting soul, Anubis says. You mistake me for someone who cares. I traded my humanity for power. 4+ military. So you did, Anubis says. Are you satisfied? No, I intone. Then you may try again, Anubis says. Surely, if you acquired still more power, you will finally be at peace. Anubis throws back his head and laughs like a hyena. You throw back your head and laugh with the old god. Maniacal laughter is quite enjoyable, you decide. You'll have to do it more often. There we have it. So I see we're going to go down the bad route. Sounds fun. So these are our stats. This is how the game keeps track of what we are, how good we are at things, how well we've done overall, and things of that nature. So the year is currently 2019. This is the start of the game, always. There's nothing you can do to change that. the game does progress in years as time goes on. We are currently 24, we are unnamed for right at the moment. Humanity, 81%. It starts at 90, I believe. I don't actually know if you can raise your humanity to 100%. I don't know if that's even physically possible. I know you can keep it pretty high, but I don't know if you can actually raise it above to that 100%. Gender, we haven't decided our gender. Fame, 0. Wealth, 0. Romance, none. Your robot. Autonomy, 0. Military, and beta. Empathy, buggy. Grace, buggy. We shall see. Some things are in our control, and others not. Epicus. Assembly. You awaken with your head on the desktop keyboard. Your 3D drafting program is still open. The schematic zoomed in to the recess where your smartphone will snap into its back to act as its brain. You recall fiddling with that part endlessly last night until finally your vision began to fade. There was a roaring in your ear, and you realized you had been working far, far too long. You must have passed out. It's the fall of 2019. You are a 24-year-old graduate student in the PhD program in computer science at Stanford. You are a guy. Your name is Darwin. And your last name is? Sure, let's go with Tesla. It's a nice historic name right there. You look around your apartment. What does it look like? My BattleBots trophy is perched on a widescreen TV, equipped with the latest video game consoles. Neatly labeled plastic shelving units sit on a 3D printer, equipped. Robot workbench. Busts of famous philosophers sit next to my attempts to sculpt them. My shelves display all kinds of strange little robotic creatures I've made over the years. For now, let's go with this. My shelves display all of the strange little robotic creatures I've made over the years. You've always been fascinated with the idea of creating artificial life. You've got at least 20 such creations on your shelves. They're construction materials, a timeline of your life. The earliest is made of toothpicks and glue. The latest, a spider robot you made out of your own old smartphone when your plan gave you a new one. Your creations often confuse people who don't get that robots don't have to be for anything. When people pick up your 3-legged wall-climbing robot that sings when it detects encrypted wireless packets, they ask, "What the heck is that for?" And you reply, "What's anything for? What are you for?" Okay, maybe you don't say that, but you sometimes think it. It strikes you for a moment that this kind of thinking about how your life affects robots is second nature to you, though others may find it peculiar. You've always been fascinated by how every little detail of your life, from the content of your dreams to the decor of your own room, changes the inputs to the robots you create, boosts their empathy, their autonomy, grace, or their appeal to the military. Surely, there are other things going on around you as a result of your decisions, but they don't immediately strike you in the same way. Today, your robot is foremost on your mind because you're about to build its body. You pick up your laptop and head for the Stanford machine shop. It is a beautiful spring day in Palo Alto, California, and your apartment is only a short walk from the machine shop, but the streets of Palo Alto are not designed for walking. You find yourself climbing around palm trees and balancing on narrow curbs, as you do every day. You hear a low roar overhead. You glance up. It's a flying car, a Nimbus. A little over $300,000 can buy you a car with wings that fold out so that it becomes a small sports plane. The red Nimbus looks sleek and sporty. It's the sort of car its owner takes religiously to the car wash. Though the commercials would have you believe that you can fly anywhere you want in those cars, the FAA still requires you to take them off and land from airports. Only here in wealthy Silicon Valley do you see them with any frequency. The first time you saw one, you couldn't quite believe the future had arrived so quickly. But the second time you saw one, you thought, I will own one of those one day, I swear it. If I ever make that much money, I'll use it to help the world instead of buying a car. Why aren't those cars driving themselves? Occasionally, you see a self-driving car on the roads of Palo Alto, but for some reason, they still haven't quite caught on as nearly as much as one might expect. Despite having been around for at least as long as flying cars, you've decided it's because people don't trust self-driving cars enough. It's important to make your robot seem trustworthy. Intelligence alone doesn't instill trust. Plus, empathy. The Stanford University fabrication shop smells like oil and burnt plastic. The room is dominated by a large metal hand-cranking milling machines and lathes. Dinosaurs of the 20th century. Well, the most used machines are the smaller 3D printers and computer-controlled water jet cutters that take a quarter of the space. The lights have a sterile fluorescence of an operation room, with only a single tiny window near the ceiling to inform you that it is day. You start up a National Public Radio podcast on your laptop. You haven't seen your advisor much since you joined the lab, so you chose the episode in which he's an interviewee. My guest today is Dr. Harry Seiger, says a woman with a soothing voice. Oh. Dr. Seiger, thank you for talking with us today. Well, a scientist does have some responsibility to inform the unwashed masses, Terry. You let the podcast run as you walk over to the 3D printers. What material have you decided to use for your robot? Plastic. It may break easily, but it's both lightweight and cheap. Metal is most resistant to damage. Wood is the most pleasing to the hand and eye. Metal. It's the most resistant to damage. Military plus. You walk over to the computer-controlled water jet cutter, where a helpful pictogram shows the jet of abrasive-filled water slicing a hand in two. Dr. Seiger, in your new book, you talk about the singularity. Could you describe it for our listeners, what it is? Terry, the singularity is the coming time when artificial intelligences will have figured out how to make themselves, and us, smarter. Once that happens, the process will build upon itself until the robots are smart enough to figure out how we can live forever. Is that possible? Interviewer asks. Living forever? Of course, Professor Zeiger says. What does it matter whether our operating systems are made of meat or silicon? So, you're predicting we'll become robots? Not exactly. But I do think the line between humans and robots will blur. You are hardly listening to a podcast because you're about to make your first robot part. What does the head look like? A human face, as lifelike as I can make it. A simple box with eyes, clearly not trying to be anything but a robot. It will be felt covered and big-eyed, like a puppet, so people will not be afraid of it. It will have a ring of cameras around for its 360-degree view. It will look like a Venetian mask, beautiful, expressionless, and otherworldly. Sure, let's go with a Venetian mask that is beautiful, expressionless, and otherworldly. The water jet cutter quickly cuts the face, the small nose and dainty mouth. The large black holes where the CCD panels will absorb all light. It takes somewhat longer to add the intricate metal frill that makes the corona to the mask. This robot will command awe. 2 grace, -1 empathy. Dr. Zeiger, what makes you think the singularity will happen now? Well, for one thing, I'm around. But seriously, my lab is taking a unique approach because we're saying, why not teach the robot like a child? We're going to equip the robot with the best sensors money can buy and teach it English. Then it could rapidly teach itself using the internet. Well, that's annoying. Your advisor thought that a robot child was a stupid idea until you told him. Turing proposed it back in the 1950s, minus the internet part. But he isn't giving credit to either of you. You keep working, regardless. How will your robot get around? It will walk upright on 2 legs. It will crawl on 8 legs. It will roll on wheels. It will fly like a helicopter. It will roll on tank treads. It will walk upright, but will also have delicate wings it can use for balance. Sure, it will walk upright, but it will also have delicate wings it can use for balance. You stretch a polyester film between the metal spokes of the wings. Then you attach these to your robot's back. These wings should give you a bipedal robot better balance, and in case it does begin to fall, they will act as a kind of parachute that will give it more time to recover. However, angels are not known for being approachable, and your robot's appearance will set it apart from the people. -1 empathy, +2 grace. Use the basic hand-cranked milling machines to drill holes in the head for screws, since water jet cutters aren't the best for threaded holes. And who is going to raise this robotic child? The interviewer asks. Who does all the grunt work in the research laboratory? Professor Zeiger says. The graduate students, of course. You find yourself wanting to pry to the podcast. It's not grunt work. Education is critical to the robot's development. We do all the real science. Perhaps you could learn something from doing a little grunt work yourself, Professor Zeiger. Let's say it is not grunt work. The education is critical to the robot's development. Because, to be fair, it totally is. We're going to teach it some machine learning, which is an actual technique if you don't know, though not quite on this scale, as you'll see. This is definitely on the realm of pseudoscience. Graduate students always overestimate the degree at which teaching actually matters, says Professor Zeiger, who appeared to have entered the machine shop behind you when you weren't looking. If the robot's smart, it will learn no matter what, and if it's not, it won't. Professor Zeiger is a heavy-set man wearing a Hawaiian shirt and aviator sunglasses. He stalks over to the computer. We'll be back in a minute, continues the interviewer. We're talking with Professor. Professor Zeiger pauses the podcast by hitting your laptop's spacebar, and you flinch at this intrusion. He then pulls a cigar from his pocket and lights it. The smell of smoke mingles with the only oily smell of the machine shop. I'm writing a grant for DARPA, and I need to see what you're making back here. We ultimately get funded by the Department of Defense, so we have to make sure they are happy with our product. He casts a critical eye on the work you've done so far. Metal's a good choice, says Zeiger. They'll want things that appear durable in the field. Professor Zeiger turns to examining your robot's head, which is currently sitting on the table next to the water jet cutter. That seems alright, says Zeiger. Looks like it will be sufficiently intimidating. And what are you planning to do with the hands and arms? Well, that's interesting. Look at that. Arthur actually missed a quotation mark right there. Never noticed that before. Tyrannosaurus Rex was the most intimidating dinosaur imaginable, wasn't it? It will have T-Rex arms. It will have a gun for an arm, like Mega Man. Mechanical grippers built for strength instead of dexterity. I was thinking sort of a Swiss Army knife hands with tools that pop out of the fingers. I plan to build soft hands with a good sense of touch. I was thinking, why just 2 arms? We'll have lots of arms popping out its back, like Inspector Gadget. Let's go with Inspector Gadget. You know who Inspector Gadget is? Zyger asks incredulously. I saw reruns on the Cartoon Network website when I was young, you say. I love that show, Professor Zyger says dreamily. But you know who the unsung hero of that show was? The Chief. Who was accountable in the end of the Inspector's fuck-ups? The Chief. Who got blown up by a self-destructing message every episode in the services country? The Chief. But nobody ever gave Chief enough credit. An awkward silence falls while your advisor ponders the character of the Chief. Finally, he shakes off his reverie. You know, with that many degrees of freedom, the arms are very likely to crash into each other if they carry anything. It will be even more of a control problem nightmare. It's fine, you say. I've already come up with a solution to that. You uncrumple a piece of paper in your pocket with a bunch of equations, and you hand it to him. It's true that this would be difficult for the average student, but I think you'll find I'm not quite your average student. +2 grace. Professor Zyger squints at the mathematics, then nods his head slowly. Fine, Zyger says, waving away further explanation. Carry on, then. He turns to leave. I've got to take a call from New York Times reporter. Funny how journalists all copy each other's stories, but each garble the message in their own unique way. He makes it to the door, then turns and says, Oh, and one more thing. Do you think your robot can be ready by tomorrow? Someone from the Air Force will be in town, and I told her your robot will be made ready to show off by then. You feel your phone vibrating in your pocket. Bad timing. You resist the urge to check it while talking to your advisor, but it's probably someone with a better offer for what to do tonight. No, there's no way this robot will be done by tomorrow. Sorry. The robot will be done, but a demo will be out of question. We need a test first. Of course. We are big with ego, right? We're full of ourselves. We think we could do anything. Let's say, of course. Professor Zyger nods appreciatively. Excellent. Good attitude. We'll make a professor out of you yet. I'll tell Captain Rogers to meet with you here tomorrow. It's a nice, controlled environment. Pretty consistent light levels. I think not much can go wrong. Yes, sir. Professor Zyger turns and walks out of the machine shop. You find yourself unclenching your hands. Who was calling you while Professor Zyger was talking to you? Well, guys, we're going to call it here. Luckily, we don't actually have to save or anything, so this should be pretty easy. Okay, bye-bye. See you next time on Choice of Robots. Show you our stats right now, and then we'll end. Goodbye, goodbye.